Right. All right, welcome today. As you can tell, I'm a little under the weather, so we'll get through this. Dealing with purchase agreements, we've been talking about contracts. We've been talking about listing agreements. Now we're going to talk about purchase agreements. And virtually a lot of the same things apply. It's just different parties. When dealing with the purchase agreement, you're dealing with the ready, willing, and able buyer and the seller, obviously. So when you're dealing with the parties on that, you have, remember, once again, we have to deal with the sellers, both parties, if it's husband and wife, and the buyers who are actually making the contract. When you're dealing with the buyers on the side, you have to determine, are we dealing with married couples, because then we got tenants by the entirety, or are they dealing like an investment property like we were just talking about? Maybe you're going to take tenants in common where you would need separate title work for everybody and what percentage is all split out and things of that nature. I've got a client right now, not a client, I've got an agent who has a client, technically still my client, where we're selling the house, but the boy has the power of attorney for his parents who are the ones in title. And the first thing that we have to do is get our power of attorney approved by the title company to make sure they recognize his ability to sign. And if they don't, then they're going to write one, because they have an attorney on staff that will write a power of attorney and get it notarized and recorded. And then he will use that to sign for his parents on the power of attorney. So that's another thing you need to keep in effect. A lot of times, I've signed for my client at least 2 or 3 times as the seller. They really don't like you signing power of attorney as the buyer. Especially, well, not they don't like you to, they won't, if the buyer's using a mortgage, because they really want his, what they call wet signature on all those mortgage documents. They don't want me signing power of attorney as, my dad's name. They want my dad to actually sign. So I've never seen a POA used with a buyer on a mortgage. I've signed before for the seller for my client where he gave me power of attorney. It was a small investment property, and we did that. Title company wrote power of attorney. He had it signed because he didn't want to come back. So I signed, my name, POA, John, whatever, to get that. The formation, like any other formation, the formation of the contract with the purchase agreement, this is where it starts getting fun. And to me, this is the fun part in the deal. Like you were just talking about, we've got to get ready to somehow start negotiating this. We just had one. We had listed for 119. Ended up because we knew the roof was bad, and we told them the roof was bad, and the $4,000 was to cover the roof. Have we talked about this? Yes. Okay. Can't remember who I talked about what anymore. Did I tell you that we then decided we'd pay for the roof? So up their offer to actually $119,700. Is that a problem? There actually is one other small problem in here that you might run into, and if you guys haven't had this yet, you probably don't know. Is there anything that seems peculiar about this purchase price of $119,700? It's higher than the listing price. That can throw a red flag, especially to the lender or to the appraiser, that they look like that there might be some shenanigans going on. So in a situation like this, you may have to justify why you're doing that. If you buy a HUD home, and I've had this happen before, where they may have it listed at 40 grand, and it's worth 70 or 80. I've had people overpay for that. You actually have to sign a statement saying you realize that you're paying more than the list price, so that list price. The list price.
Is that what happens when you get into a bidding war? You have 2 or 3 people interested in the same property?
Yeah, if the house is good. Or they'll ask for multiple offers, and someone will come back and go, hey, I know it's a $70,000 house, or it only needs $10,000 to be a $70,000 house. So they will overpay the asking price, and when that happens, a lot of times whoever the lender is will have to come back and say, you understand you're paying more than the list price. And that happens. So far, this has not been a red flag. We have not had their lender. I think their lender understands and is acceptable with the fact that we've got a 119 listing, but a 119.7 purchase price.
Now, are you guys giving them the $4,700 back in credit, or are you actually paying for the roof?
We are actually paying for the roof out of an escrow account that gets created at closing with Phil Billy's name on it. I only say that because he knows who we're talking about. Yeah. I'm glad she said that, not the other way.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a roofer. So Phil is going to, when we close, they're going to take $4,700 out and write a check directly to Phil's company to roof the house, who will then roof the house that day. It's a one-day job in what he said. So we are paying for it technically, but we're paying out of proceeds of a house. The good thing about this, or the weird thing about this that we just talked about yesterday in CE, is while we are paying for it, technically who's paying for it? The buyer's paying for it. What's the advantage to doing this as opposed to the buyer just writing the $4,700? What's the advantage to doing this?
The agent's getting more commission too.
Well, yeah, we actually had talked about that, and one of the things we had thought about doing was telling the other side that we were only going to pay commission on the net instead of the gross. Not changing the percentage, they're still getting 3 on the other side, but it's not of the 119.7, it was going to be of the 115. But my guy said, you know what, there's not much difference. What is it, $150? Yeah, it's like 5 cigars. So he said, you know what, I don't want to get into the hassle of arguing, let's just pay it and move on. Especially since he has a, you know, and maybe it's not fair to say this, but he has a relatively low mortgage. So the difference between him making like $45,000 and $43,850 isn't really enough for him right now to argue. He just wants to get it because he has to be moving out of town. So this is a trick that you might, use. And the advantage to that is not the advantage. How we did that is we literally held our ground. We just said we're not paying anything. What's the old adage? He who blinks first loses in the negotiation, because they came back and said we want a new roof, and we said we discounted it $4,000 for that roof. We're not buying you a new roof. And then they came back and said, okay, then I guess we can't do the deal. And my seller said, okay, we're not doing the deal. We'll cut your earnest money back. Have a good day. And then they kind of came back and went, okay, wait a minute. We really want the house. What can we do to solve the problem? So we got Phil to check the roof, and he came back with a $5,700 bid. So we sent that over to him, and they came back and said, okay, we'll pay half, you pay half. My guy said, no, cut the check back to him, have a good day. And they said, okay, hold on a minute. We really want the house. Can we knock the bid down? And we literally got on the phone with Phil, and Phil went from 57 to 47. And I'm not advocating you beat up your guys, because I gave Phil permission. I'm like, Phil, if you don't want to, just say no. And he came down to 47. The other side, said, okay, if we pay all 47, can we do the deal? And Brent's like, yeah, sure. So that's how we did it. I mean, he just literally held the line and never negotiated anything. But his belief was the negotiation was here, from the 119 down to the 115 to begin with. The property description would be where we describe that. And remember, we don't use street addresses, we're supposed to be using legal addresses. And I know you guys all probably want to go back through the northwest quadrant of the northwest quadrant of the northwest quadrant.
I think there were like 2 questions on my test. They were easy questions, so.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that I told you that, you know, it's really good to know, but it's probably one of the most notable that you literally go whoosh when you get done with that, because you're going to call your title rep. Or on the tax document, it literally has usually the basic, you know, the lot 27 of Sherman Commons of that to get started, plat book 41. So a lot of times we just copy and paste. There was a situation just 2 or 3 weeks ago with Chicago Title. Has anybody met Jamie Kester yet from Chicago Title? Ask her this story. Guy had 10 acres. They subdivided it into 5 acres and 5 acres, and she was going to sell the 5 acres. Went through, got the purchase agreement, got the property description, the legal description, sold the property, screwed up on the legal description, and she sold all 10 acres. Yeah, and now they're not really sure what they can do. So ultimately, you know, you guys might have to look at that and determine, hey, is this actually correct? Even though the title company pulled the certificate or pulled the legal description, I'm kind of curious if they're going to somehow pony up. I don't even know if the pony up's the right word. I mean, how can they force this guy to sell the property back to him? So the guy ended up buying the 10 acres instead of 5 acres because the legal description was wrong on the purchase agreement. Yeah. Should have okayed it, yes. And that takes us back to you guys. I mean, we joke about it and say we never use it, but ultimately, is that something that we should verify and check? It's the first time I've ever heard this happen, so I'm kind of curious to find out what's going to happen as the outcome. You know, ultimately, you would hope that the buyer, and this goes back to what you and I were just talking about, Dave, before we started, has respect enough to come in and go, yeah, you're right, that wasn't what I really intended to buy. I will quit claim deed back to you that 5 acres so you can have it, and not one of those, well, too bad, I now own it, take me to court. I hope it doesn't come up with that. Yeah. I kind of believe that the title.
Mistake the agent or the title company?
I'm sorry?
The title company's the one that made the mistake.
But no one checked the title company. So their statement is, well, there was an agent involved and there's a seller involved. Who's ultimately responsible?
Okay, but was the title company wrong based on the information they were given on the purchase agreement, or did they just screw it up?
I don't know. I think they, based on the way it was explained to me, it was just screwed up.
Wow.
That they got the legal address for the 10 acres and then didn't divide it. They just, oh yeah, here it is, and something probably happened, and then they just copied and pasted and put it over on the title work.
Yeah, who divides it? Like, how do, like, as an agent, if somebody has 10 acres and we're just selling a portion of of those 10 acres for them, the title company's the one that would name that section, or would we?
No, surveyor.
A surveyor.
Surveyor. Well, we just had this happen.
Okay. I'm like, I don't even know where to start with something like that.
I've sneezed probably 800 times today.
I bet it's from being in the hotel.
Oh, no, I had it yesterday, teaching down at Continuing Ed. No, you know what it's from. I'll tell you what it's from. I mean, for what now, 4 days? I've taught 8 hours a day. I've been doing the math. I mean, I'm nonstop talking for,
You're exhausted.
yeah, 32 hours. I will. It's called This Weekend. And then next week we're going to do it again. I'm not used to actual work. It's killing. See, I'm allergic to it. Work is a 4-letter word. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, we just did the 80 acres there on Whiteland Road because almost exactly the same scenario. Guy came up and said, look, I don't want to buy 80 acres, I'll buy 20. And he bought it at our acreage price. We did a per acre price and said, okay, we'll sell you 20 at like 25,000. And they said, okay, how are we going to do that? And they called the surveyor and they looked at, the first thing the surveyor did was take the plot plan and look at the topographic map and said, you know, this is probably the best area down in here, so let's do some math. And then he went and shot all the azimuths and took it to the assessor's office and recorded this new plat as being, you know, 10 feet off by, and basically what he did was a meets and bounds. He did a meets and bounds.
Right in the middle of the border of the property.
No, he did not.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put a driveway in everybody else's.
Like this.
20 acres frontage, everybody else is behind.
You know, that's hey, that comes into play, and that's a discussion that we literally had with him. And those are like I said, that gets into that discussion of it starts getting fun when you get to start solving problems, because literally that's what he asked for. Of course, on his side of the table, he wants the premium. This is Whiteland Road. That's 37. He wanted right there. And he wanted it for the average price. And we said, okay, if you want this acre here, it's going to be like $400,000 of the 800. Even though it's a third of the price, you've got all the frontage, you're taking all of that, you're going to pay over. He's like, well, I don't really want to do that. So what we ended up doing is he got a pertinent easement straight to the owner of the land lives here and is selling this 80 acres. So they put an easement between there, back to this guy's house.
So did he take the back for the average price, or did he get a better deal?
No, he took the back for the average price. Yeah.
So what was he, did he have a business?
No, he just wanted to be back secluded in land where there was trees and hills. It's a really nice piece of land. He just didn't want neighbors around him.
Is this that property we have on 37 that we talked about?
Yes. Yeah.
What about if they, is that the one that they rezoned or something that's gonna be worth a lot more?
Yes. And that was another reason why, if he wanted the front, we wanted to make a lion's share of the money, because if they rezoned it, we would lose the front 20 acres.
Oh, was it 20 acres would be gone, so what's the, putting some roads in or something?
Yeah, it's ag right now. All right. If they rezone it, and then the problem is the city takes it for 37 or 69, it may not be worth anything, because they're going to take some land to make this Whiteland's going to be an overpass, and they've got a grade, and they said they'd probably take 4 or 5 acres like that for the grade of that hill to go up the overpass, which the guy said, I'll take the front and I'll take the risk. And our guy said, okay, but you're still going to pay over the average price, because I'm losing all of the frontage. Who wants to be in the back? Nobody wants to be in the back, especially if it goes to commercial. So he ended up taking the back for his house. And this guy sold back here, but he made an appurtenant easement down and he also actually gave John rights to that appurtenant easement. So theoretically, John can go down here and drive into his lawn, because he has actually one right there to his house. So the fun part was coming up with that and stalling the buyer. On the bright side, the buyer in this situation was a cash buyer. And it was going to be a build, so he didn't need to move instantly. So that when we brought the surveyor in, the surveyor told us it's going to be 6 weeks. By the time I could get time to get around to doing it, actually doing it, get it recorded, and then it has to show up in the recording so that the title company could literally sell it. It took like 6 weeks. Me? Yeah. It was 80 acres. Yeah. It's not a bad price. It was 80 acres at like 11 grand an acre. Yeah. We had an offer at 750 cash and he didn't take it. And that's the one where you really would like to smack your client. Don't miss the forest for the trees, dude. I know we got it at 880,000. This guy offered 750 cash. He closed within 30 days. and my client ultimately turned it down. Yes, that was the guy on the town council that made the offer, and he turned it down, and I kept saying, the only problem with that is you don't know the client, because the client's like 74 years old. I mean, he doesn't need to be buying green bananas. I know, that's bad. Don't laugh. So I meant, theoretically, he should have taken the money and went on. Yeah, we've also got personal property. You guys can annex, what's it called? Well, too late now. Annexing personal property into the deals. This roof deal that we're doing, they asked for certain things. Brent wanted to get rid of it anyway. So like they wanted the washer and dryer because it matches the dishwasher and the refrigerator. So Brent left that. I mean, you guys can deal with those.
That actually raises a question. So like with in Frederickville, I've been looking at a lot of condos, and most of them have been vacant, but they still have like the washer and dryer in them. A lot of them are those front loader ones that are pretty expensive. And my client asks me every time, does this come with it? And I'm like, I don't know, but I can find out. How do you do, just initially, like looking at like a listing, how do you know that?
In the listing agreement,
It doesn't really say
on the MLS, it should say, there is a section called personal property. When you look on the page, somewhere right in this area, near the middle.
Near the agent remarks area?
Yeah, it should be right in that area. Is there property included in the sale?
It says that?
Well, that is the generic thing.
Okay.
Now, and then there's a bunch of lines. If there's nothing in it, that section's blank.
I don't think I've ever seen a listing with something in there.
Yeah. The agent would put that in when they listed the property,
It'd be right there on the listing.
and it should be on that listing.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but, maybe they just don't want to mess with it where they're going to have one, so they don't want to mess with it until it's
Yeah.
done. And then, the buyer could.
Well, you should definitely, even if you see it, and there are people that do things like, we're making an offer on the property as it was seen on December the 7th. Or they'll print the MLS sheet out and say, here's a copy of the MLS sheet. This is the one we saw. So that way when we get there, it isn't missing the stove or the refrigerator. The ultimate best thing you should do, and I saw one guy that was really anal about it. He sent us over some stuff, but he wanted the model number and like the serial number and all of that, so that when he sent it over to us, he would, refrigerator, Frigidaire, model number so-and-so, side-by-side, ice maker on the door, refrigerator. So I don't know if somebody had screwed him once before in the past. Oh, look, it said refrigerator. There's a refrigerator right there. Dorm style, but it's still a refrigerator. We asked for, when my son bought his house, they had a TV on the wall. And we asked for the TV because our pitch was it fit the bracket that was already there. And the bracket was obviously going to stay since it was bolted in the wall, and they left the TV. It was a 40-inch TV.
Yeah, that's the thing is once they see it in there, it's kind of hard to tell them, no, you don't get that. That's kind of what I'm experiencing with every unit that we go to. The vacant ones, obviously.
Yeah.
People living in them, she doesn't want the furniture and stuff.
I sold one a number of years ago, furnished.
Did you?
Yeah. It was a house that was furnished, and they almost sold it completely. The weirdest one I sold, almost one of the very first ones I sold, County Line and Railroad Road. There's a speedway on the corner. That housing addition on the west side of the railroad track. You guys know? On the north side of the road, there's a trailer park, I think, on the south side of the road. On the north side of the road is a house. I sold a house in there, one of the very first ones I sold, where they left their cat. They were outdoorsy type, and they were moving from here to Anchorage, Alaska, because they wanted to spend some time finding themselves by going out and hiking and doing all that. So they were going to be moving to an apartment, and we sold the house furnished. But one of the furnishings was they wanted the cat to stay because the apartment wouldn't take a pet.
Was it an
No, it was an indoor cat.
Then you sign up, you take the house, you take the cat down and have it euthanized.
That's horrible.
That's horrible.
The hard part's like, no.
So here's what you know what we did? I marketed it as buy a $99,000 cat, get a house free.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's one.
Put that in the MLS?
Yeah, that's one of our. We put a picture of the house, and then under the property description, that's what I put. That was one of my cute little things. Buy a $99,000 cat, get a house free.
You're a cat person, that's quite wonderful.
Yeah. The couple that bought it kept the cat. And to my knowledge, unless they did your suggestion, it was still there. Of course, that's been 16 years ago. Who knows if the couple's there. But when they came over to visit the house, one of the things they did when viewing the house was meet the cat and pet the cat and all that. The sellers were of the belief that the cat was used to the house. He knew where the cat door was. He liked the field behind it, so they wanted to leave the cat, and the new buyers took it. So tried that with one of my kids once, and it didn't work.